podcast. Today is a little bit different and I'm kind of excited about it. This is a double episode with my friend, Sophia, and we've both scaled pretty significantly without relying on social media, but in very different ways. And so we decided to pick one strategy and go in depth with you about it and answer the same 5 questions. So same questions, 2 totally different playbooks. So Sophia grows through relationships and real-time events, and I'm talking about growing through search and things that you can do on autopilot. And the cool part is there's not one right answer. We both do very similar things, but a little bit differently. And so these are 2 doors, right? These are 2 doors that you can choose. You can do one, you can do both. And once you hear them, I think you're going to know exactly what your next step is. Both halves of the interviews are out right now. So one on my podcast, one on her podcast. And so you can listen straight through. This is my half. Sophia's is waiting for you right after. And so I want you to be excited about this because we are handing you a playbook, right? We get very specific. We give you real numbers. We give you actionable steps, and you're getting 2 different perspectives. And so I think this is the piece that a lot of people miss. We're sharing what worked, what didn't, the mistakes that maybe gave us the ick, and the one thing that you can do this week to attract the right people into your world. Hi, Sophia. Welcome to the Crush the Rush podcast. I am very excited for today's episode because it's something in my 6 years and 600 episodes that I've never done before. And that is we have dual episodes going and we're asking each other the exact same questions about a topic we're really passionate about. And that is how to grow and scale without being dependent on social media. So thanks for being part of this really cool experiment today.
I'm so excited to be here. We've been talking about doing this for so long, and I'm glad that it's like finally happening.
I know. And I think we were chatting before we hit record that visibility is a word that I think may be overused at this point. And so is, I think, scaling without using social media. It seems to be a really popular topic. And so it's important to me that I bring in experts that are doing it in a way that makes sense and sort of honors that like life first model, which I know you do. So before we dig into the questions, tell us a little bit about what a life first business looks like for you right now.
Well, Holly, you know this, but I had a baby a year ago. And let me tell you, if there's anything that's going to force you into a life first business model, it's having a freaking baby. I think what's so funny is that when I gave birth or before I gave birth, I was like one of those people that was like, yeah. I know everyone says that like things are going to change, but for me, that's just not going to happen. Like, I was working 60 hours a week just because I liked it. Like, honestly, I'm just one of those people that really like working. And so it was no problem. I could always find an opportunity to work, even waiting in line for a coffee. I was just always on. And I was like, I already like integrate my business into my life. Having a baby is going to be no different. This is going to be a walk in the park. It's so funny, like looking at old Sophia or younger Sophia, I guess, and like just how much I didn't know. Anyways, today I went from a 60-hour work week to drum roll, please, 18-hour work week. I still feel like I get everything that I actually need to get done. And I think that's the key here. It forced me to look at my schedule and the amount of stuff I did on a daily basis that I told myself I needed to do. And then I realized I don't actually need to do this is mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Having a baby really forced me to look at what was actually not just a priority, but a needle mover. Because I think that's the story we tell ourselves, right? We think all these things contribute to your revenue, like needle moving activities, whatever we want to call it, and they just don't. So for me, a life proof business is really about knowing how to trim the fat on your schedule and integrate business into life and life into business in a way that doesn't mean you're on all the time. It means that you are on when you're on and you're off when you're off, and you know the difference.
Yeah, so good. I feel like we could have a whole episode about what those needle moving tasks are. So maybe we'll have you back for a part 2. But I want to dig into, so you and I both have a very similar social media optional business. And I think this is important because we both teach different ways to grow and scale, where if you want to be on social, you can. If you don't, you don't have to be. And I think it goes into what you were sharing of like, when you're on, you're on, and when you're off, you're off. So if you want to be on, great. If you want to be off, great. But it gives you the option. So why did this become so important to your strategy?
Well, there was a point, and actually it was before I even got pregnant. So I clearly was naturally or instinctively like kind of moving down this lane. It just didn't really become a thing until I was forced to, you know what I mean? But there was a period, I was actually going through IVF. So there was a lot going on where I was just like randomly, you know, having days where I was just really not in a good spot, right? I just wasn't feeling well. The hormones were acting up, like whatever it was. And so I was just like, God, I really need to like rethink how I'm operating. So this is something that I do with all of my clients, but here's the funny part. I was doing this with my clients to help them understand the role social media played in their business, because here's the kicker. I used to be a social media strategist. That's actually how I got into business, right? I actually was all in on social media. I thought it was like the most important thing you could do. I talked about it all the time. There's lots of podcast episodes out there where I'm going to completely contradict myself today. But we were in a different time. And I think that also people's priorities have changed over time. I think there was a point where like being online a lot was kind of like cool and fun because it was new, but now we really understand the impact of that. And it's not moving the needle the way it used to because of numbers and all the things that we don't need to get into today, algorithms, yada, yada. So I ran an audit with all my clients, right? Where I break down, because inside of marketing, there's only 3 priorities, right? Growth, nurturing, and sales. Every single thing that you do from a marketing standpoint has got to fulfill those things. How are you getting discovered? How are you actually nurturing those who discover you so that they actually trust you enough to want to buy from you? And then of course, how are you selling? And for a lot of coaches, are you actually selling? Because a lot of us are so like, we're such givers that we forget to actually sell. So when are you selling? How is that mapped out? And are you actually following through on that? Aside from just like waiting for someone to book a discovery call or whatever it might be for you, right? So I break down this audit with all of my clients, again, to understand what the role social media plays. Because most people think social media is a growth platform. I actually would argue, especially in today's day and age, that it's a nurturing platform. But most of us are not using it that way. So I was like, God, I haven't actually done this audit on myself in a really, really long time. I had done it. And what I had discovered for my own business already before was that the role that social media was playing in my business was actually in building my network. So I had actually already, the nurturing thing wasn't even a thing for me anymore, right? It was actually connecting me with people that I could collaborate with, which was a big part of my strategy as well. It is still today. So I did it again. And what I discovered is it was no longer playing any role for me. I had growth covered in another arena. I had nurturing covered in another arena. I had sales, I've never been selling on social. So that was already being covered in another arena. And I wasn't actually connecting with network on social as much anymore either. It still happened, but not as much, right? That was more connections. That was actually through my growth strategy, which I'm going to talk about today. So I was like, God, when did that happen? And so I was like, what's going to happen if I stop posting?
Yeah.
So I got pregnant, tested it out. I have not really posted since. And like, yes, you'll see a few posts, but like, you'll notice there's very little business content on there because it isn't the thing, right? So for me, that really was the like eye-opening piece. It's not serving me the way I was telling myself it was. And as long as all of the arenas are covered in other ways, I'm good. And that's really what I try to tell people too. Are your growth, nurturing, and sales pieces covered? If they are, you also have the option to cut social.
Oh, so good. I mean, we could talk for like 3 hours about this. Okay. So here comes the fun part of the interview. These are the same questions playing on both of our podcasts today, but we both interpreted them very differently. So the goal is that we want to give you a strategy, multiple strategies that you can listen to, walk away with, and implement and hopefully see the same thing that we're seeing, where maybe you can step away from social, or maybe you can just take a break and feel really good about it.
Yeah.
So, first question, tell us about one strategy that is working right now for you.
Okay, so I wish I had a name for this, right? But what I try to communicate with people is, for me, it's really about building a circular visibility ecosystem. And what I mean by that is, I talked already about the three, arenas that need to be covered: growth, nurturing, and sales. What I find people do is they say, oh, this thing that I have is what's growing me, right? So that might be, I run a summit once a year, or let's be honest, they're so exhausting. You probably run a summit once every 3 years, right? Whatever it might be.
Haven't ran one, probably won't.
For nurturing, they probably are saying I post on social, or I email consistently, right? I'm sorry, that's actually not nurturing. That's probably a whole other conversation, but that's not nurturing in my opinion. And then sales, they probably are launching or having discovery calls. This is not an ecosystem. These are all disjointed pieces. They do not work together. And I always say that everything that you do probably should kill more than one bird with one stone. Otherwise, back to how I cut 60 hours of work a week down to 18, right? Otherwise, you're working so many hours a week, right? When you really could be doing things that do more than one thing.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's start with the whole nurturing piece, because I actually think this is a fun piece to start with.
Yeah.
It's, emailing your list consistently and posting on social media is not nurturing, because those things do not predictably create conversation with your audience. Can people reply to an email saying, love this? Sure. Can people like a social media post? Sure. But conversation is actually back and forth opportunity where you can showcase what you know and give them an experience of what it's like to work with you. If that is not happening, you're not nurturing well enough. Okay. I guess I won't like completely pop your bubble and say you're not nurturing at all, but it's probably not moving the needle the way you want it to. Right. So one of the things that I have implemented into my growth system, which I will talk about next, is I have something called a low lift offer. Low lift, not low ticket. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Low lift, yes, is priced a lower amount. But the reason it's called low lift is because it has nothing to do with building something. You're not building a course. You're not creating more content. It's nothing like that. It's literally, hey, here is access to me. You can ask me questions, and you're going to pay a low ticket amount for it, probably for a short period of time. That could be, for some of my clients, they do this for 30 days. For some people, they do this for 3 months. Some people don't actually have a time limit on it. I've actually done that as well, and that's worked. But the idea here is people talk to you and get so freaking excited that they have this access to you that you sell them into your actual offers. It's basically acts like a discovery call, but you're getting paid for it. And why that is different is because we actually want people to reply to our content. The biggest frustrating thing that we have right now is that we create all this free content and no one says anything to us.
Yeah.
Right. For whatever reason, this free opportunity is no longer being taken advantage of. So I changed this. I should give a little bit of backstory here. I had something called a Q&A day strategy, whereas one day a quarter, you can ask me questions. That worked really well until people started asking me, when's your next Q&A day? I have questions for you. And I realized, oh, you're waiting for my free Q&A day and not buying from me. So instead, I created a low lift offer where there was a small amount of people in there at a time where they can ask me questions and I can essentially move them through my ascension model. Right. So that is what the low lift offer is and why I created it. And it is sprinkled everywhere a new person can find me. Trigger pages on the back of lead magnets, trigger pages on the back of growth events, welcome sequences. Again, it's really targeted at new people. It's not necessarily something that people that are already working with me would probably really discover, but also if they did, the messaging is clear that it's probably not for them. I actually think I'm changing the naming to be called the welcome party. So it's really clear that it's not for former clients, right? But that's the idea of the low lift offer. It's to create conversation so nurturing can happen predictably, and I can move through people through my ascension model. Now, so that's my nurturing. And then of course I still do have eventual Q&A days, but it's not quarterly anymore because it's less expected that way, right? But I often sell them into my low lift offer that way. So you get it. So that's what the low lift offer is. Now, growth. I personally can't stand summits. And private podcasts are wonderful. I fucking love them. But also, I have found that when I do growth events, I want there to be a little bit, well, I guess I should say private podcasts in the format that a lot of people do them, which is like they have guests and they're like, you have to sign up to listen, but that's like, it's constantly updated. So I do mine a little bit differently. I have like listening, I call them listening tours actually. So I create like 10 episodes where we're having a conversation about one thing and it's called something. Like my next listening tour is called Becoming a Big Deal. And it's going to be sharing people who are hosting events and basically how they leverage those events to become known inside of their industry. Because that's the piece that I think is missing about events. People are guesting on bundles instead of hosting. They are guesting in summits instead of hosting. They are guesting in insert blank instead of hosting. If you are not hosting, you are not leading as an authority in your space. So for me, I built something called a listening tour, which is much lower lift summit, but acts like a private podcast. And there's a concentrated promotional period so you can grow your list within 30 days very rapidly. I've grown by anywhere between 600 and 1,500, depending on the guests, right? But it still lives on so that I can have seasons, season 1, season 2, season 3, etc. So it grows with me. It serves as a lead magnet, but I still get the list growth that a summit would give me, right? And the most important piece there is that I'm hosting it and becoming known for it. And it brings people into my world where they discover my low lift offer, come in to chat to me, and I sell them into my other offers. So in a big bird's eye view, obviously there's other little pieces to this, but what I am trying to do is create an action that leads to 2, 3, 4 other actions and are all built to serve those 3 pillars. How am I growing? How am I nurturing? And how am I selling? And then the other golden, hidden third one is how am I building my network? Because this strategy also means that I build a network where I can collaborate. And that for me is the number one piece that I find people miss altogether. Your network is your secret weapon. If you do not have one, you will feel it. Does that give you a clear enough picture?
Yeah, I love this so much. The second question that we came up with is why did it work? But I would love to ask, why does this work and how does it protect your schedule? Because if you're listening, you're like, wow, so basically you're creating a summit that's like a private podcast. You're sort of like merging 2 of the methodologies, which I love. I love private podcasts. And also you're creating this like low lift event, but that is some of your time. So like, how does this work with your schedule?
Yeah. So here's what I have discovered about the low lift offer. What people get so excited about is the option to be connected with you, but they're not using it the way you think that they will, right? They're so excited to have you in their back pocket, but they don't actually have 17 million questions. They have one question, right? And they want the answer to it. And what usually happens, like this doesn't always happen, but what usually happens is I give them clarity on that question. They're like, holy shit. I finally understand what I'm doing. And then I'm like, honestly, if this is what you're working through, you belong in such and such offer. And which is always true. I'm not lying, right? It's just like, this is what we do in such and such offer, right? Like, are you sure you want to just figure this out yourself? Or like, do you want to check that page out? I can send it to you right now. And they're always like, yeah, send me the page. And then they become buyers in that, right? Yeah. Because what ends up happening is the piece that they're feeling stuck on, right? When you break them through that, they're now feeling, wow, I get the value working with, like, I get why there's value there. Or if there's not the timing for them, you are the first person they consider because they had that experience with you, right? So the expectation is you're just going to be hanging on Voxer all day answering questions. But what actually happens is instead of sales calls, you do this. So I have 0 sales calls on my calendar most of the time because I speak to people inside of my low lift offer and then they just want to move on to the next thing. I think that this particularly works for people who say, oh, I just feel like when people actually talk to me and have a conversation with me, they just want to buy from me. It's just, I need to have more conversations. If that's you, something like this can be such a game changer for you, right? Yeah. I also think people, if they're like, oh yeah, sometimes if I speak on stages, people are like, oh wow, that meant a lot to me. again, a sign that something like this, people need to hear your voice. People need to have that energy exchange with you. So that's why it actually doesn't add to my schedule. But I will add one more thing. I have very strict boundaries around it. So yes, they can ask me unlimited questions, but I take 72 hours to reply, right? Maximum, right? So yes, I can like, if my schedule allows it, I can do more, less than that. But if it doesn't, right, I think I can't. And I also say we focus on one thing at a time. So you can't just drop 7 questions for me and I'm just going to work my way through them. It's like, what's your question now? We'll work through that. And then there's another question. So that also very much takes care of my schedule. Now with the listening tour, that is a reusable asset. My emails are reusable. My marketing is reusable because again, the idea is you create something that's super aligned with your business and what you sell, that you have a very rinse and repeat system. So my team now use it, like basically can run it all for me except for the recordings, which is my favorite part. So that's okay.
So good. I mean, I feel like these are so like real life strategies that are like super implementatable. Is that a word?
Implementable.
Implementable. My brain today, but it's not taking up a ton of time, right? Which is really important.
No, not at all. I mean, like I said, I work 18 hours a week now. And so, and I guess that does mean like what I also like about this is because the conversations happen often on Voxer, like if I am in the middle of a day where I'm not typically working, like I can still manage that. I can't manage a discovery call though. Do you know what I mean? Like it takes the requirement of a call, which used to be a big drain on my schedule, off the table altogether because they don't need it. So I think that that's like the really most important piece.
Yeah, I love this. Okay, question number 3. Let's get into some stats, like real numbers. What has this actually done? What surprised you when you looked at the data? And then the third piece of this is like, what was the cost of getting there? Like, is it a heavier lift at the beginning? Was it awkward at first? Give us like the inside scoop.
Okay. So I guess I've been doing a version of low lift offers. I have not called it low lift offer until recently, but I've been doing a version of it for probably since 2022, if I remember correctly. We're in 2026. Yeah, 2022. The first year, 2022, this low lift offer was actually a free version. And 100% of the people that took part over the course of a year bought from me within a year. So the conversation piece was really, really important. The following year, 93% bought from me within a year. The year after that, I didn't track because that was my IVF year and it was really, really hard. I wouldn't be able to tell you exact, but I have such a memory of just being like, oh, great. Yay. Yeah. You know, so I feel like it went really well. And ever since, every single year, of course, I think the market has shifted a lot in recent years. You and I, Holly, talk about this all the time about how people are second guessing coaches and this and that. So I think since the AI has really become like AI, I think we're more down to 80%, right? Like somewhere around there. Which is still
an amazing number.
Exactly. Yeah. And when I do have sales calls, right? Because there are some people that just need a sales call and that's okay. I'm not against sales calls. I just want to make it so that it feels like only for the people that are like, I'm like 90% there. I just have some logistical questions and I'd rather speak to you. That's fine. You know what I mean? And so my sales calls, I've always actually converted really highly on sales calls because I have very strong nurturing strategies. Again, I focus on conversation. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
But now whenever a sales call comes off of the low lift offer, I basically know it's a conversion. Like I don't remember the last time I don't want to like toot my own horn here and totally jinx myself. I know. I don't actually remember the last time a sales call didn't convert. And I'm looking at the last year, right? And it's so much because when they get on there, we have had back and forth. They already
you already know their business.
100%. So I've impacted them in such a low ticket or free way that they can't fucking wait to invest, right? So I think that is a big piece here and why those kinds of things matter. With regards to the listening tour, what kind of conversion are we seeing? I mean, my entire email list is built off of collaborations. I have never been allowed to run ads because Meta thinks I'm a robot. I don't know where I got that. truly, I have sent my passport. I've done all the things and it just tells me I'm a fake person. And I'm literally like, I don't know if I should take offense, Meta, but it won't let me run ads. So I've never had the option of running ads. So I have had to figure out other ways. So collaboration in general has been huge for me. But the reason I think the listening tour, like I said, has added so many in terms of percentages, the majority of my email list or collaborations in general. But the reason why the listening tour I love, right, is because it's so much more sustainable. I can do one every quarter without feeling it, right? Mm-hmm. But it deepens my relationship with my network. Mm-hmm. So even if it's an ineffective in terms of list growth, season for whatever reason, let's say I add 600 people, which, hey, I'm not going to sneeze at, but like, let's just say it's like not 1,500 like everyone wants, right? Let's say it's like less than half of that. I have still strengthened a relationship with 10 new people to add to my network. And those lead to referrals. Those lead to podcast opportunities. Those lead to other collaborations. So and Holly, you and I have collabed on things before, you know what I mean? And here we are doing an experiment on a podcast. So it leads to so many other opportunities that it feels completely worth it. I don't have the numbers on, it would be so hard to pull stats on that, except to say I knew maybe 5 people 4 or 5 years ago in my network. I was not networking at all. And then in 1 year, I did 2 bundles with 40 contributors in each, and I knew them all personally. So that's about 80 people in a network for a collaboration that all said yes and grew my email list a few thousand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think seeing that change from a few years ago where I couldn't even get podcast guests because I knew freaking no one, you know what I mean? And then now it's like, oh, I just need to send a few emails and fill 2 events with 40 people each. That says a lot in how this strategy has grown my network. And then of course, also my list. I hope that still gives some data.
No, this is amazing. Okay. Next question. If you're listening and you're like, okay, this sounds doable. Give us some tips on what not to do, or what's something that you're like, oh my God, don't do this. This completely gives me the ick. Something that's please don't take this strategy and go do it this way.
Oh my God, there's so many I could probably do here. Okay. So with regards to implementing the low lift offer, do not cross your boundaries. If you're saying I only ask me 1 question at a time, do not let them ask you 7. You know what I mean? Remind them of the boundaries, keep those things intact. Also, you remind yourself the reason you have that offer in the first place. This is not a moneymaker. I know that sounds crazy. Your low lift offer is not designed to be a 6-figure business offer, right? It is designed for people to have conversations with you because they are more likely to do that if they are paying you something than they are to just reply to a free email. Yeah. So if that is the goal of the low lift offer, you have to remember to sell to them while they are in that low lift offer. You have to remind them to say, hey, I'm going to answer that question because it's a great one, but this is what we do inside of my program. So I just want to make sure you are aware of that program. You have that information because my sense here is that's probably where you belong if this is what you were working on. So I'm going to shoot you that link. Or actually, I probably don't do that. I ask them if they wanted. But sometimes I'm like, you just need this link. But pretty much I'm always like, okay, so let me know if you want that link and I will send it to you right now. But here's how I would approach this thingy. And that way they are constantly reminded of where they belong. Now, on the same foot, you also have to be able to say, this is a great question. And because of the format of where you're asking it, I won't be able to dive into all those details. We're doing a back and forth conversation here, but you're asking for something that is not included inside of this offer. Again, this is about building it and those boundaries you have in place. But usually, for example, I can't audit a sales page in a Voxer offer, right? I can do that in this other thing. So I make that very clear in the checkout page. So when people ask me, oh, I want to do this, I'm like, I love that for you. Here's the part of that question I can answer. And here's where you need to go if you want that, right?
Yeah.
This way, you again are using it as it's intended as a sales mechanism. So that's the one thing that gives me the ick. When people create this thing and then suddenly their boundaries disappear and they just are working twice as hard and not moving the needle, moving people through. That's that. With regards to your listening tour, what gives me the ick is when people pitch with zero specificity.
Yeah.
If you are going to pitch to people, especially people who are bigger names than you, if you're like, I had a client today, she pitched someone, and this person that she pitched is humongous. When she told me she was going to pitch her, I was like, I don't think she's going to say yes, but let's do this, right? So we worked on this pitch. We got so specific. And what I mean by specific is, this is why I thought of you. You posted a carousel last week where tip number 3 on that carousel was talking about this, and this. And this perfectly aligns with the philosophy that I am sharing inside of this event. You know, it's so specific to what the content they're putting out there, a book they wrote, whatever it might be. It's not, you talk about transformation and this is transformation. That's vague. Right? It's very much, you need to know enough about this person and make them feel hand selected. If you do not know this person and they are a quote unquote big deal, if you are not specific, they will not say yes to you. Right? So the specificity is so freaking important. Long story short, she pitched with some specificity, and this person, we don't know if she's going to say yes yet, but she did say, this is really interesting. I'd love more information. And she asked a few questions. So she's actually considering it, right? Yeah. Again, if you pitch with specificity, that's what's possible. Make them feel hand selected, make them feel seen, just like any client would want to feel seen. If you do not pitch that way, the chances are unlikely. So between those two things, I think those are huge needle movers in those two arenas.
So good. Okay. Last but not least, we got some rapid fire and we merged it into one question so that we can be efficient. And that is, what are 3 things or several things, however you want to answer, that are actually helping you get leads right now? So like tools, habits, strategies. What does that look like?
Yeah. Okay. So this is going to be different depending on like what kind of things you sell, right? There's a couple of, and this is the thing that one of the big things that Holly and I were like, we interpreted this differently, right? I interpreted this like, how am I approaching things from like a philosophy standpoint? So that's how I answered it. But I still think this will be helpful. So I'm going to stick with it. So one thing is, how can I monetize like an influencer? I ask myself that every day. And here's why. Influencers, FYI, I've learned this recently because I started another podcast that has nothing to do with what I sell. It was just supposed to be a fun thing that I did with my husband, who's a Peloton instructor. And so it was a whole new audience for me where I'm not talking about business coaching or anything like that. So I was like, overnight, I went from selling my own programs to selling Nutrafol. Like it was such a wild shift, right? P.S. Nutrafol is amazing. Okay. So I'm like, how can I implement what I'm learning inside of my own business? For example, influencers are not thinking about, this is going to sound crazy. They're not thinking about, how can I give this person so much value so that they're going to want to buy from me? They are thinking about, how can I leverage this one thing as much as possible and charge for it? Right? Yeah. That's how they approach this. Like everything is a monetizable task. And so I have started to consider it that way. I have been building my email list for years. I don't have a massive email list, but I have a very engaged email list because of how I grow it and how I like purge it. What's the word I'm looking for? Not purge it, but like cut unengaged people.
I think purge is good. I think purge.
Okay.
Manage
I'll
clean it. Clean it.
It sounds like that horror film. I was like, I don't know what I'm getting to. But because of those, I have a very engaged email list, right? So I was like, I'm going to create an application where people in my space, my network can apply for me to test some of their offers, pick things that I really, really like, and do like a whole event into my email list, which I call Friday Finds, where every Friday I share something I'm fucking loving. And I can recommend it with my whole heart because I've actually tested it and give my audience a discount code for it, right? So there's a deal with that business owner. They're making some money. We're building a relationship. I'm making some money as well as an affiliate, and my audience is getting a deal. That is how influencers think, right? That's how they sell Nutrafol. That's how they sell all these brands, right? So I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So that's one thing that I came up with. I also sell ad space in my podcast, which I can't believe I never did before. I actually also pitch ad space to products like Nutrafol and brands and things like that, that my audience is women. Like, yeah, sure, we're talking about business, but that doesn't mean we don't like, we're here because we want a different lifestyle. So lifestyle things aren't totally weird, right? So that's like number one, monetize like an influencer, or at least ask, how can I leverage what I've put my blood, sweat, and tears into creating and monetize it? The second thing, which I've already talked a lot about, but it's low lift offers. So I'll leave it at that because I think that, again, that what that has done is cut discovery calls for me and saved me a boatload of time. And then the third thing is, like, where can I lead, especially from a network building standpoint? So I think what people, I said this earlier, but I'm going to repeat it again because this is really the core of what I believe. If you are not hosting, if you are not creating, if you are not leading inside of your space, not just as a coach or a, whatever business owner you are, but like as a colleague, a collaborator, a network builder, right? If you're not doing those things, you are very likely showing up to your growth strategy as the best friend instead of the lead character. Yeah. And for me, so I think hosting and creating and like, it's just so freaking important. We cannot only be guesting on bundles or summits or things like that. We have got to be creating our own shit. Right. And so that comes down, can you host a panel, right? Where that's a relatively low lift way to be a leader in a space. Do you want to create a networking group where you invite 5 other people and you guys just like for one call, like mastermind on each other's businesses for 90 minutes, right? Whatever it is, you have got to stop being a guest in someone else's thing and start being the host, the creator, the innovator. That is how over time you are going to position yourself as a household name inside of the work that you're doing. And again, not just another one. And I think that is, for me, the big realization I had when I had my baby, right? That like, holy shit, the only reason I have gotten through this year and been able to cut my work time is because I had a network that saw me as an authority. And it's because I was doing things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Oh my gosh. I mean, we could go on for hours.
We really could.
Thankfully, there's a part 2 on your podcast, but tell everyone if they want to learn more about all of these things, what you're doing, all the wonderful assets and materials you have, tools, all the things, where to find you and connect with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, if you are feeling like, man, I need to run an audit and know what I am taking care of, how is growth being taken care of? How is nurturing being taken care of? How is sales being taken care of? So that you can kind of design your ecosystem and what that looks like for you. I'm going to give the link to Holly. Like, what is that? I think it's gotocoach.club/audit. I will just change it to that if it's not that right now. So gotocoach.club/audit. So that'll help you run through it. And it's like a 20-minute video where you can do this audit for yourself. And then that'll give you the information you need to how to approach visibility. I've got a podcast called Marketing Unfiltered. You can listen to part 2 over there where we're going to dive into Holly's strategy for getting seen and getting known. And then if you're interested in diving into creating your own visibility ecosystem, you can learn all about She's a Big Deal, which is about to run their second round of beta. So it's a really great price right now. And there's lots of extra access to me. We actually have unlimited private coaching calls, just saying. And I will drop that. I'll give that link to Holly as well for the show notes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sophia. This is so fun. I hope you guys love the questions that we came up with. And I hope it gives you some ideas on what you can do a little bit differently, how to stand out, and best of all, how to just like step away from the social media madness. So thank you so much.